licensing meeting. She said not switching her machine on. Thank you for attending the meeting on the 7th of November 2023. And before we start, I'd like to run through some housekeeping rules. There are no planned fire alarms, so if the alarm sounds, please leave via the exit. I won't do one on this side or one on that side and jump into a car or whatever. The toilets are outside on the right. And can I please ask you to turn your mobile phones off, either on silent or turn them off? Thank you. And now I'll ask everybody to introduce themselves. First of all, I'm Jane Bell and I'm chairing the meeting. Members, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sorry, James Gleeson, Councillor for Cart Green and Gregson Lane.
Councillor David Howarth, Councillor for Howickham Priory in Penwortham.
Thank you. Can we start, Coral, or whoever?
Coral Asprey, Democratic Member Services Officer.
Chris Ward, Licensing Manager.
Ashman Legal Officer. Asnim Safdar, Legal Services Team Leader.
Jess Clegg, I'm part of the events team at South Ribble.
Thank you, everybody. And now I'll outline the hearing procedure. So it will be as follows. Our licensing manager will outline the applications and any relevant representations. The applicant and or their legal representative will then be invited to make representations in support of their application, including the calling of any witnesses. And then there'll be questions to the applicant and or the legal representative, and that will be permitted by the panel and any other responsible authority and the objectors. We have no representations from any of the responsible authorities, but ordinarily they would be invited to put forward any information in support of their representation. We have no objections to the application, but ordinarily they would also be invited to put forward any information in support of their representation. I will then ask the applicant if, in the light of any representations, they wish to amend the application. The panel will only consider the application laid before it during the decision making. I will invite the applicant to sum up. I will ask the licensing authority legal representative whether there are any other matters to be raised or resolved before the hearing is closed for debating and deliberations. The applicant will be given an opportunity to sum up, and the applicant or their legal representative will be issued with a detailed notice of decision within 5 working days after the hearing. And if the applicant is not satisfied with the decision, they have the right of appeal at the Magistrates' Court within 21 days. And now we will begin the meeting. Now we've all had our instructions. Have we got any apologies?
None.
No apologies, thank you. Has any interest to declare? Usually nothing, thank you. Procedure. A copy of the procedure to be followed has been included in the agenda and the pack for information, which we've already done. New premises licence application. Jess Clegg. That'll be you, won't it? Yes. Right. And now, so you go first now. So you go first, don't you, Chris? And now our licensing officer will put forward the application. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So the hearing today is to deal with an application submitted by South Ribble Borough Council itself through the events team for a new premises licence pursuant to Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003. Because this application has been submitted on behalf of South Ribble Borough Council, for transparency and impartiality reasons, members are asked to determine the application themselves instead of officers, who would normally be the case where relevant representations have not been received. Over recent years, the successive community events in the town centre have seen the size of the events grow. Events such as the Leyland Light Switch on and the Taste of Leyland require authorisation to play amplified music and to sell alcohol. As such, these temporary event notices for authorisation have been considered as not good working practices by the licensing authority and the police. Under the Licensing Act 2003, a temporary event notice only permits up to 499 people in one permitted area at any one time. Additionally, the licensing authority cannot add any conditions to a temporary event notice unless it relates to an existing premises licence, where they would be copying across the conditions already imposed. Issuing a premises licence will give the responsible authorities more enforcement over the event. Paragraph 12 of the report shows the conditions agreed between the applicant, the police and the licensing authority, and this is to ease concerns over the regulation of any event taking place. The conditions agreed will only permit events up to 6 times per year, and 14 days notice must be served on the police and licensing authority before any event takes place. The events team will always attend the ESAG meetings where these events will be put forward to the police and all responsible authorities at that meeting. No representations have been received for any responsible authority or any member of the public. We can confirm the application has been served and advertised as stipulated within the Licensing Act for the correct representation periods. Members are now requested to determine the application should be granted with or without modifications or rejected. South Ribble Borough Council Licensing Act 2003 policy states the following with regard to members determining applications. This form of delegation is without prejudice to officers referring for an application to the Licensing Committee if it considers appropriate in the circumstances of any particular case. Section 18 of the Licensing Act 2003 steps out the steps which should be taken, which are to grant the licence subject to any conditions the licensing authority may consider appropriate for the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives, to exclude from the scope of the licence any licensable activity to which the applicant relates, to refuse a specified person in the licence as a designated premises supervisor, or to reject the application completely. A licensing authority must carry out its functions under the Licensing Act in a view to promoting the licensing objectives. In carrying out its functions, a licensing authority must also have regard to its own statements of published licensing policy under Section 5 of the Licensing Act and any guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Would you like to put forward your... All right, is there any questions of Chris? No. No. Right. Yes. Councillor.
Just a very quick one. So far, we've been issuing temporary licenses, which have a restriction of 499 people on them. If the applicant is successful in obtaining a permanent license, what sort of numbers are we talking about? Particularly, I mean, I was at the light switch on last year and the Taste of Leyland and the light switch on in particular. It was quite a crowd that were there.
We say about 4,000 if I read correctly.
Is it? It's what's in the application.
Yeah.
Form. Let's have a look.
I remember reading it.
It's the applications for up to 6,000 people, but that could be a condition which members might choose to decrease or increase depending on safety aspects. What I would say with those numbers is the responsible authorities aren't opposed to the licence application. So the fire, police, ambulance service, they will all have had the application and haven't chosen to object against this application. So on those numbers, the 499 that they've used previously in the past has been for the stage area, where we would like the whole of Hough Lane to be licensed and be incorporated with conditions that regulate the whole event instead of dividing that area up into smaller areas. So it has been sent out to responsible authorities, and if there was a capacity issue, the likes of the fire, police, they would have issue. What we have asked for in the application is a risk assessment carried out for each event individually, so that would be indicated within that risk assessment.
Thank you, Chris. And now it's your turn.
Thank you. Yeah, I think as mentioned, obviously, as we've seen over the years, the events have grown. So we were advised by police licensing to put this licence in based on the growth of the events, particularly over the last 2 or 3 years. So the main events we kind of organise, like you say, the Taste of Leyland event and the Light Switch On. And we also support the Leyland Festival as well. So for each of those events, we apply through LCC to close the road. And obviously as the landowners, that's always granted. So we do have a lot of stalls that attend the Taste of Leyland and the light switch on, some of which are bars, which will all still maintain the individual TENS as well. So every time we have that event, they will also apply for a TENS licence. So again, yeah, it was just kind of an additional measure really that the police licensing felt was necessary for us to apply for at this time of running the events due to the growth over the last couple of years.
I'm aware of this Taste of Leyland, there's the light switch on. Is the festival included in this? In the there's the parade up Huff Lane.
They'd need to apply for any authorisation for any licensable activity that's taking place. It would be any event that takes place.
Right.
So it could be any future events, Chair, where they decide to start a new event, but it would be capped to 6 per year.
Right. Yeah. And at the minute we've got 4. Because you're involved in 2.
Yeah, the Taste of Leyland and the light switch on we manage.
Am I aware? I'm only just clarifying here, because last year they did music in the street, didn't they, before the music festival? So with that, are you involved in that one?
We aren't directly involved in that event, so we don't organise or manage that event. It's the Leyland Town team that manage that.
Right. So because it's still going on in the same area. I'm just wondering, would they have to apply for a different licence?
Do you want me to clarify?
Yes, can you clarify that?
So if Leyland Town team wanted to use Huff Lane or the licence, they would have to have permission of the licence holder, which would be the events team of South Rulborough Council. So they couldn't just use the actual licence off their own accord. They would have to have permission from the actual licence holder themselves. And as the council would be the licence holder, they would be the responsible people for that event.
Right. So the town team need to be very aware of that then, don't they? So, right. Yeah. That's there was a bit of because I do know the town team do some good stuff, but if we're not involved, there's going to be a sort of a crossover of are they doing it right, and we don't want them to do it wrong because they do some good stuff. Yeah. So we need to clarify. I think that's something we need to clarify with the town team.
Yeah, it would be up to the events team itself. If they was granted a licence to their chair, they would have control of that licence. So if Leyland Town team or anybody else wanted to use it on behalf of the council, they would have to have permission of that events team because they would be the owners of that licence.
Yeah, right. Because it's just to be very clear about.
Yeah, they couldn't use it without the permission.
Right. So, but we need to make that clear. Thank you very much. Has anybody got any more questions for the applicant? No, nobody. Good. Well, I think do you want to sum up anything, Chris, now we've got to that stage?
I can do, Chair. It's just to go over for myself for the decision that members are asked to make. So, again, under Section 18 of the Licensing Act 2003, the steps out which members can take. So that is to grant the application without any modifications. They can grant the application with additional conditions, or they can refuse the application, or they can decide to ask for somebody to be taken off as the designated supervisor for the licence. Again, when making decision, the licensing authority must carry out its functions in view of promoting the 4 licensing objectives. And in carrying out those functions, we must have regard to our own statement of policy and any guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Licensing Act.
Thank you. You can sum up now as well. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I think that covers everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Unless there's any more questions.
Any more questions? Anybody? Anything that's clarifying by anybody? Are you okay? Everybody all good? All good? Chris, you good?
Yeah.
Nothing. Well, that's wonderful. We've come to the end of that. So we're going to sit and deliberate now as to whether you can have your licence or not, and put any conditions on it. We will let you know within 5 working days. And if you don't like it, you can apply to Magistrates Court. But you've got to do that within 21 days. Okay?
Yeah.
Can I just clarify, will there be a named person in the events team, or will it be just the events team that this licence is given to?
There will be a designated premises supervisor, so there will be the accountable person on the licence, but the licence will be in the name of South Ribbleborough Council, as we've got other licences, say, for instance, Don Worden Park, and those sorts of licences that are in the council's name.
Right, fine. That was just wanted to clarify that. So you may leave, and thank you very much for coming. Nice to see you. And good luck with the light switch on. Make sure you're wrapped up, people are freezing. Yeah, up for good weather. Thank you. Bye-bye.